At ESA right now, David, we heard from Coach Snyder. We'll hear from him again in a moment, but had it been a fun post game with Hayward, I would think.
You know, he was happy, but he wasn't overjoyed. I think that's the thing we've seen with Gordon Hayward here. He's improved this season versus what he did last year or 2 years ago. He's become a more consistent scorer. Okay, 31 points is a big game, but still, I don't think any of us are shocked when we look at a box score and see that Hayward had 20 or 25, and this is a Laker team that isn't as good, and they're shorthanded, and they're going back-to-back, so the thought that he would do better than 20 or 25 wasn't extraordinary. I think the important thing, Dave, was looking at the box score. Anytime you see someone has a big night, you look at it and you say, okay, great, you scored a lot of points. How many shots, how many possessions did you use to get those points? Well, Gordon was very efficient. 12 of 18 shooting the ball, 4 of 7 from behind the three-point arc, so he didn't need very many shots to have his big night. What was the key to getting him going? That was the first thing he was asked after the game in the locker room.
Our team needs me to be aggressive, to try to help us score on the offensive end, and whether that's being a playmaker, getting other guys open, or scoring myself, you know, I need to make sure that I'm aggressive.
Gordon scores 31. You surprised when you see the stuff anymore from him, or just kind of what you've come to expect from him?
Well, come to expect now. You know, he scored 30. Like, oh, okay, Gordon got 30. You know, you just come to expect that now.
You know, we've had some players that I think individually have improved. You know, that have their own. You know, young players. It's as important for them to grow individually as it is for our team. Those two things usually have to happen, you know, in concert to really be effective. And I feel like that's happening, whether it be Gordon, Fave, Rudy, Trey. You know, I'm seeing that development across the board.
Gordon Hayward, 31 points. He wasn't the only guy with a big night. Trey Burke, 20 points, although he did need 19 shots to get his 20 points. And then Derek Favors had 18. They were only 3 guys in double figures. So it's a good thing they came up big, and it's a good thing Gordon Hayward came up with a huge offensive game. Because, Dave, I could follow you on Twitter, and I know you were watching the game, and you could see there were long stretches where it was pretty difficult for them to score. Ennis Cantor, despite his improved offensive game this year, Ennis Cantor did not have a good night. 2 of 10. Could not put the biscuit in the basket, and then he hits a massive 3 at the end of the game. I thought that was a huge shot for momentum to seal the game. So you never know. You're 1 for 9, but you hit a big shot.
Well, it's interesting too. I mean, both of us tweeting. You know someone's having a good night when almost every tweet involves that player, and that's kind of the way it was, you know, for Hayward. Hey, the Jazz are leading by this much, and Hayward's got this much. I want to circle back to a point that you had made about the shooting. He was 12 of 18 to get the 31. I mean, how many times have we seen Kobe get 40, but it took him 30 shots to get it? That really speaks to the maturity and the being on target tonight for him.
You know, the guy I always think of is Tracy McGrady. There were nights he'd get 28 points and 27 shots. Iverson sometimes, although at the top of his game, Iverson was impressive. But for Gordon tonight, it was impressive. And I think he said this after the game, too. He said getting out on the fast break early in the game, he got some easy buckets, he got a couple of dunks, and you feel a little better. And then you hit a 3 and think, hey, I'm having a big night. I'm already in double figures. I'm shooting a high percentage. And the confidence gets going, and you really get rolling. And let's face it, it helped that they were playing a Laker team that was on the second night of a back-to-back. And the back-to-backs are harder when you travel from west to east. Bowler said the Lakers got in at 3:30 in the morning. So it just completely disrupts your sleep. And you're playing a second game in 2 nights, and you're shorthanded because Kobe's not playing. Ronnie Price, who's been playing some pretty good minutes for them, he didn't go tonight. The Utah Valley guy's hurt, fractured nose, and a sore right elbow. So they held him out. So you're going against some Laker backups, and they're tired, and you ought to light them up, and Gordon did.
Don't forget the biggest key. They're trying to get a better spot in the lottery. But anyway.
Well, they're trying not to lose their pick to Phoenix. They need a top 5 pick. If it's 6,
that's right. Jeff
Hornacek's rubbing his hands together thinking, oh, boy, we need that. Yeah.
What a balancing act that's going to be. Before we get to your next set of interviews, and there's some interesting things, by the way, that we're going to hear from Coach Snyder. You talked briefly about the fast break points. I want to, again, go back to, you remember against the Warriors the other day, the Jazz, I want to say they had 2 fast break points. Today, they were all over it.
Sure, and I think a big part of that is, you know, the Warriors hit a lot of shots, and Steph Curry's very good with the ball, and the Lakers were terrible with the ball. They had 21 turnovers, and those 21 turnovers led to 17 points, and the Jazz win the battle on the fast break points 17-9, so that's an 8-point advantage and a 9-point win. So clearly, the fast breaks were one of the crucial elements in this game.
Okay, one of the things I loved hearing in 2 News at 10 is the comments that you selected from Coach Quinn Snyder, and it was just true coaching. You know, it doesn't matter. Remember the old commercial where the team's up by 50 and the coach is just ripping them at halftime, and kids like, but coach, we're up by 50. Well, in true coaching form, he found some things to pick at.
Yeah, well, the first thing I think you have to say is I think it was the truth. You know, they did make Phil Johnson called one of those fouls, or I guess two of those fouls, coming out of a timeout on the radio. They bring him in to tease what's coming up, and he said, yeah, it made some bonehead fouls here. And so I think we all know there were some plays that were less than spectacular. This was not the Jazz best game. But early in the year when they were 6-19, the wins were so rare and the confidence was so fragile to non-existent that he didn't dare criticize the team after a win because they needed to be pumped up. They're humans. They need positive reinforcement. But now that they're 8-7 in their last 15, he can say a little more of the truth, and he can try to teach them when things are going bad. And he really didn't mince any words after the game when he talked about their effort down the stretch.
In another game, a closer game, that happens, we lose. And we played really well at times, but we foul, and it cost us the game. Well, so it gets, I think, particularly with a group that's trying to improve, you got to really identify those areas where you need to get better and just focus on them, you know. And clearly, defensive, you know, I think our activity and things defensively was an area that, you know, we weren't very good. We hadn't been together that long. We had some guys individually that I don't think took enough pride in it themselves. That may never be great defenders, but can be good team defenders. It's a long answer, but I think you get the idea of what I'm talking about.
We're still a young team, you know. We're still have a lot of things we can improve on for sure. I think we fouled Nick Young like 4 times for threes or something like that. So turnovers too. But for the most part, we defended, and when you defend, you know, it gives you an opportunity to stay in the game, and that's what we were able to make our run at the end.
So there's items to improve here, and obviously they have to play better Sunday because they're playing San Antonio in San Antonio.
Just a little bit better.
Right, and you go on, though, and you look at the next 2 road games. Can they win in Cleveland or Milwaukee? LeBron is back, so that makes Cleveland tougher, obviously. They come home, and they've got a couple winnable games there with Brooklyn and Boston. So they're 8-7 in their last 15. I'm curious to see how long can they play 500 ball. I get that a big part of this year is about individual development, and we're seeing it. Hayward's better. Favors, I think, has taken a huge step forward this year. Rudy Gobert has taken a huge step forward. I think Trey Burke is making some progress. You know, as still a young point guard in the league, he's being asked to do a lot. But you can see multiple guys improving. But
I can see. I still wouldn't be surprised to see Gobert end up in the starting lineup at some point and have Cantor coming off the bench.
It could happen.
Yeah.
But I think you're also seeing them win. I'm interested to see how long can they play 500 ball for.
Yeah.
And we'll probably air it this weekend. Another part, and there were long post-game remarks. Quinn Snyder talked to the media for a long time tonight. But one thing he said is, you know, we had a tough stretch in the schedule, and as much as I don't want it to happen again, when you look at our schedule, there's a pretty good chance we'll have another real tough stretch. Yeah. So I don't think they're a 500 team forever, but I'm interested to see how many, you know, one more week. How long can you push this stretch out?
All right, he is David D.J. James on Twitter.
Yeah.
And David, you got a busy weekend coming up. You mentioned the Jazz that you'll share, and some big college games tomorrow as well.
You know, just Utah at Arizona, number 8 versus number 10. First time 2 Pac-10 teams have been in the top 10 playing each other, and I think it's 5 years now.
Yeah.
And first time for the Utes since Majerus had Andre Miller, and they were, you know,
I want to say it was against
final.
Tim Duncan, as a matter of fact.
That's the last regular season one. Yeah, they had him in the tournament since then. Right. But you're still looking over 15 years. Into the Duncan game it's not 20, but almost. I think it's 17 years, something like that.
And a pretty nice game too, with BYU taking on St. Mary's. St. Mary's 6
That's
in all the WCC,
big game because the West Coast Conference will be a 2-bid league, and right now BYU's tied for 3rd. So beat St. Mary's because along with Gonzaga, they're in the top 2 spots right now. That's a huge game for the Cougars tomorrow night.
All right, David will be here all weekend over on Channel 2, talking sports, following 2 News at 10. Thank you, David.